the Hays Code was the way that the studios self-censored their movies. It was a self-governing body that made sure that all movies were made for general audiences, meaning no gore, no sex, no profanity, which includes goddamn. No portraying religion as bad. In fact, they try to steer away from portraying religion at all. That way they don't offend anybody. Good guys had to prosper, bad guys had to be punished. All that.
And, an interesting example, I'm sorry to cut you off, Justin, but a interesting example of the Hays Code is have you ever heard of the movie Double Indemnity?
Yes.
And it was based off a book, because originally in the book, the two main characters ended up killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the Hays Code, they had to change the ending of the movie.
Huh?
So I didn't know if you knew that or not.
I did not know it was because of the Hays Code. No.
Yeah, but they did have to change the ending. So anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
But there was a time before the Hays Code where they got away with some interesting stuff, including the movie from, I think it was 1933, Freaks. Yep, that's it. This was a story about a woman who marries a excuse me. It's about a woman who marries a little person who back then was referred to as a midget. Who was also a circus freak. And she did this for money because apparently he was very rich. And when they found out, they took very violent revenge, which included, I think, tar and feathering the woman. This movie was apparently so graphic that a woman actually complained that she miscarried because of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I think that, and because of that, they actually cut out an hour from the movie, and that hour has actually been forever lost.
Oh, no.
Yep, because back then, storage of film was very dangerous because film is very flammable. So yeah, an hour of this movie is lost to the sands of time. And this is one of the movies that prompted the creation of the Hays Code. Otherwise, the government was going to step in.
Really?
Mm.
So this was the movie that kind of like changed it all in a sense.
You will find that there are a lot of parallels in media, comic books, film, video games. They all have a catalyst where the accessibility of the medium changes forever. For film, it was the Hays Code. For comic books, it was the Comics Code Authority. For video games, it was the ESRB. Well, ESRB is more comparable to the MPAA. It's more of a rating system than anything else.
Gotcha. All right. So is that
Well,
it
yeah.
for the 30s, or we got more stuff
Oh,
for it?
of course not. We have Dracula. We have the Wolf. We have Frankenstein. We have the Invisible Man.
I forgot about those. Sorry about that.
I think those all came out. Well, Dracula's 32. Bela Lugosi, who played Dracula on Broadway before.
Children of the night. What the music they made.
Which, not in the book.
I know, we read the book in high school.
I know we did. That's why I had to say it.
I know you know it. I'm just telling the good people.
So, we have Dracula, Bela Lugosi, which decided to take a more romanticized approach to the Count, as opposed to what Nosferatu did back in 1928.
Nosferatu.
Yes, anyone who grew up in our generation knows Nosferatu mostly because of SpongeBob.
Yes, we do.
Or Justin, remember from, what was it, Dracula Dead and Loving It? She's alive. She's dead? No. She's alive?
Nosferatu.
She's Nosferatu.
Yeah.
She's Italian? That's the
Exactly.
Mel Brooks movie, Dracula Dead and Loving It.
That's a great movie too. If you guys have not seen Dracula Dead and Loving It, get on it. It's a really funny movie.
She's Nosferatu. She's Italian?
I'm
Anyway.
gonna be honest. I do think it's Dracula. I do think it's Mel Brooks's weakest parody, but compared to most satires nowadays, yeah, it's pretty good.
I shall move the coffin. Or the chandelier. Okay, but anyway, going back to Bela Lugosi.
No, that's mostly what I had to say about Dracula. Then you
Okay.
had Frankenstein with Boris Karloff.
Oh, I wanted to say something about Dracula, if that's okay.
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
My grandmother, God rest her soul, she I remember her telling me, because she grew up in like the 30s, and she told me when she saw Dracula in theaters, when we went, look into my eyes, she goes, it was like literally the scariest thing. They just zoomed in right on his eyes. So, Justin, since I've seen clips of Bela Lugosi's, but how close is it to Bram Stoker's book?
Not very close.
So they basically just took the book, didn't read it, and just threw it away.
No, they did parts. They did a lot of the book, but they made Renfield the one to visit Dracula in the beginning. They completely do away with Quincy Morris.
I remember what the high school English teacher said he was his favorite character.
Yeah, he was great in the book, but they always seem to butcher him or just not do him at all in the movies, and this was the start of that. honestly, the one that does it closest really is probably
Francis
Coppola's
Ford
Bram
Coppola.
Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, not a lot of people like that one, I think, right?
No, people like it. They just don't like Keanu Reeves in it.
Mm.
I mean, granted, that's a pretty big part of the movie, but
How can you not like Keanu Reeves?
did you hear his English accent?
Okay, it's bad, but Keanu in real life, he's awesome.
I
Keanu was
know
pretty cool.
Boston sleeps.
He has overthrown Tom Hanks. But anyway,
Yeah, and it's like Tom Hanks's Tom Parker.
rest in peace, Bob. We miss you. No, but yeah,
It's a
but like I said before, we move on to Frankenstein. With the look into my eyes, could you see why it was scary back then, Justin? Or meh?
I guess people had different standards for scary back then. Like, if you were to show someone back then, say, The Exorcist, I think they would have a literal heart attack.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about that, won't we?
I mean, we have to.
Yeah,
We
okay.
just mentioned it.
Well,
We have
that's
to, yeah.
40 years away, so we got
time. I'm gonna go for 3 hours tonight. I'm calling it. I'm just kidding.
So let's move on.
Frankenstein.
Yep.
So, yep, Frankenstein was the next franchise in the Universal horror movies, starring Boris Karloff as the creature. And, well, it popularized, "It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!"
That's where this came from. That's good.
It's this one, because I don't know if the book had him yell, "It's alive!" I mean, he might have said it, but I don't think it was a yell or a scream or anything like that.
Yeah, I remember reading some of the book by Mary Shelley.
Yep.
Ooh. I remember I watched it when I was it was on TV. I must say I was like maybe I was like 4.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad goes, "No, it's not scary. It's funny. It's funny." But then when I showed the I was terrified.
You know what? I was the same way when my dad tried showing me Young Frankenstein for the first time. And I didn't realize, oh, this is comedy. Because, it was black and white. It still had a little bit of that feel to it of the original, kind of the intent. But yeah, this one I can get a little more than, say, Dracula, because this is an actual creature. Like, you put yourself into the shoes of the victims, and yeah, you can kind of see how this can be scary.
100%.
And that's really the only way you can see how this is scary, is the idea of putting yourselves in the shoes of the victims. Which, to a lot of modern audiences, is not enough anymore.
Really?
Oh, so
I guess you need something a little more cerebral to really get at people's ear that, or a shit ton of jump scares.
Jump scare.
yeah. Okay. No, I wasn't. I'm just making conversation with you. That's all. You know.
Yeah, you do not like jump scares, do you?
I hate jump scares. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them.
Not a fan of them whatsoever. I will say that. So,
So anyway,
but Frankenstein 1931. Anything else you wanted to go off on at all or no?
I mean, this one I really didn't see.
know-
Okay.
I just know of it more.
Okay.
so if a monster comes into our town, should we get the pitchforks and torches ready,
Yes.
and we'll chase it out old school?
We're gonna say kill the monster. We're gonna do it. I promise.
Yeah, but what do you think made these 30s horror movies like so iconic though?
Maybe the choice of the monster.
I think it was just coming out at the right time
Probably that too.
because it was pretty novel that these horror movies were coming out. Movies in general were all talkies in general were still seen as a very new thing. 1928 is when the first talkie was released.
Was it 27? Was it 28 or 27?
I think it was 28.
The Jazz Center.
Jazz singer.
Okay.
So 1931, that's only 3 years later. For those who've seen movies such as Singing in the Rain or even Babylon, which Bill and I saw, the transition into sound was not all that seamless. It was a lot of trial and error.
Because a lot of Justin, see how I deal with this, okay? Are you ready to grade me, Professor?
All right, Mr. Murphy, let's see what you got.
Because when there was a transition from silent to talkies, it was a big challenge because one, they had to know how to they had to work new equipment to get the sound.
Yep.
And two, a lot of silent film actors were having a hard time adjusting because one, they now had to memorize lines.
Yep.
In which when they did silent films, they didn't have to. And a lot of them didn't have the proper vocal training.
Yep.
To be in talkies. And that was why at that point a lot of theater actors at the time were transitioning to film.
Mm-hmm.
Because they already knew how to memorize lines, they had the proper vocal training, and that's why the transition from silence to talkies was a big challenge. So how'd I do, Professor?
I give you an A-.
Okay, what's the minus part?
Some people just didn't have the right sound for talkies. Like their voices were just harsh for it.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a lot of actors who were like that, but there were some.
Yeah.
So you think it was the choice of the monsters that made it?
I think the fact that these were some of the first talkie horror movies probably played a huge part in it. Freaks in particular was pre-code. It took full advantage of that, and is also still considered a cult classic to this day.